Charles. How you feeling? How you doing?
I love it when you hit those high registers, It just really makes my day. Thank you, Drew.
It's this, we sometimes we record late in the day, and I just want to make sure you're awake and with us, present in the moment.
I know.
Spiritually,
it's been a long day,
physically.
but you make all the days seem shorter.
Oh, my God.
Especially when you screech like that. It's great.
Well, we are back. We're part 2 of BenDavid Grabinski. Once
Yes.
again, I am outnumbered by talented American filmmakers. And we have a lot of fun in this one.
Yes. You know what I forgot to bring up last week? Not
What?
only are we both independent filmmakers, but we're also both born in Nebraska. We're Nebraska
Really?
boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. A real kinship.
We were born, I think, like within a couple weeks of each other in the same state. So
Wow.
I think he was in Lincoln and I was Omaha. But I'm going from memory now. I have to look it up again, but I'm pretty sure that's what I found out when I looked at his IMDb. I was like, oh my God, he was born a couple weeks before me. Yeah, in Lincoln. He was in Lincoln. I was in Omaha. But fellow Nebraska boys as well.
Wow. Couple of Cornhuskers over
Yep.
here.
Mm-hmm.
This week we get into a lot of Skiptrace talk.
Yes, that's the movie he wrote or co-wrote. He's one of the writers on. He tells a funny story about it. Many funny stories about it, actually. And it stars Jackie Chan and Johnny Knoxville.
And we also get into his rankings, which are very interesting. And he gives us his John Wick rankings too. And we get into some fun stuff. But do we have anything else to do beforehand, or should I just get into my favorite part?
I think you should just give it to us. Tell us who brought us this episode.
Well, this episode, Charles, now that you ask, is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. Still going strong, Down Under. And each week, Jeremy talks to a different songwriter, actor, director about the music they love and how it's influenced them and their work. This episode is also brought to you by John B. And also Elvis Ripley, who has the greatest name ever and who was inspired in his cinematography career by none other than Rogue Nation. So, we always love hearing how the Mission Impossible series has touched people and influenced their life. And one of our Patreon subscribers, we're going to have to talk to her because her entire wedding has been inspired by Mission Impossible. Yeah. And
her engagement, the proposal was like a whole Mission Impossible mission that was laid out for her. It's just amazing.
Yeah, we won't spoil it here. We're going to have her on the show probably. So we'll put a pin in that. But if you want to be a part of this community, the quickest way, Charles, is just to sign up for our Patreon.
Yes.
Because really, that is the bee's knees. And we have had such a lively conversation, especially this past month. We had like 15 people on the call or something.
Yeah.
So
a lot of fun.
Really, really fun. Yeah, so do that. We'll tell you more about it at the end of the episode, but we just wanted to plug that. And should we just get into it, Charles?
Yeah, let's hear more from BenDavid. He's hilarious. You're going to love this.
Great.
Fallout to me is perfect for what it is, but it has like two things that kind of bum me out, which is that the most like I've ever liked Jeremy Renner is when he was getting his sort of dynamic with Alec Baldwin in Rogue Nation. Like it felt like it was really going to be setting up the two of them as being kind of like the old guys in the booth from the Muppets version of like the spy guys who are like running things. Like it was really being well set up for a two-hander, but we all know Marvel movies can get in the way of things. But the real thing for me was like the teaser for Fallout looked like it was going to be the best movie ever, where it looked like they're adding sort of bigger stakes, but also being playful. Like the teaser had more of kind of a little bit of that fun, kind of loose vibe, which the final movie didn't. And what I realized is like I obviously as like an adult don't like Imagine Dragons.
Right.
Like, they've never been my thing. But the song in that teaser is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
well, they made a little adjustment to it. Lauren Balfe did a little adjustment to make it sound a little more mission-y.
Bless that guy. That version of it from that trailer, it's one of my favorite like teaser trailers like of all time. And like the movie's perfect. It really is. But there's a little bit of like the energy of that I was sort of expecting that I've never been able to sort of let go. But, it sucks. It's still like after this perfect movie, like, oh, it ruined it. It didn't ruin it. I just feel like, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I just kind of wish they imagined a few more dragons in the movie.
Wow.
So is it that you just wanted that version of the song in the movie? Did you want to hear that?
I was just like, I gotta tell you, like, I got pumped to see like people load their arms and like do all these things to that song. And they've just deprived me of it. So basically I'm about 3 years into my Fallout cut, which is I've just added that song to every scene. And it's just been really difficult because you can't really justify it. But I think I'm going to crack it where just the whole movie just plays that song. There's no, sorry to Lauren, your music's gone. It's just, and we're calling it the aptly named Imagine Dragons cut.
Wow.
I'm gonna release it straight to Vimeo, and then get sued by all the involved entities.
Looking forward to that.
I didn't actually do it in case, like always, no one can tell when I'm making a joke. I have not actually been doing that for several years. I've only been working on it for like 1 year.
Right.
It's because I haven't really figured out how to get the software to work. It's like there's not like any actual work has gotten done.
Well, are you pumped for 7 and 8? What's your current sort of emotion?
I'm like as pumped as anyone could ever be. I obviously am a little weary because they're abandoning film. But besides that, but look, here's the thing about it. I love anamorphic film, but I also like Kittredge more. So for me, it's like if you add Kittredge to the movie and then they shot it with like a BlackBerry camera, not even like an iPhone, like, or if they shot it with just like an iPhone, like made like a broken high 8 camera, I'd be there because Kittredge, we just needed him because he's alive.
Yeah.
He was in the CinemaCon footage we saw. So, and it looked great. So do not be afraid of the digital photography.
All right. So the only way I could be disappointed is if there's not a point in the new one when Ethan goes, Kittredge, now you've seen me upset.
Ooh, that better happen.
Yeah. So if that doesn't happen, opening night, if you hear a guy in the back go, fuck you, at the screen, it wasn't me. I would never do that. It was somebody else. In that
AMC City Walk
scenario.
IMAX.
Now, it's probably the Dolby Burbank 16. I think that's the best. I've decided that's my favorite screen for presentation in LA. So if anyone wants to murder me, that's where I'm going to be. Opening night of 7.
Wow.
To hang out at that theater. Yeah, but what about movies that are true IMAX? Like Dune and the new Mission 7 will have IMAX sequences, and so will Top Gun Maverick. You got to see that on that AMC City Walk big IMAX screen.
I've seen every movie that was made for IMAX. I really like the Grauman's one in Hollywood. I see a lot of movies there.
But isn't that one technically not a full IMAX? It's a LIMAX?
Yes, but the problem with City Walk is like only 30% of the seats are good. Like I saw Dune opening night, and I was a little too far to the right, and the guy to the left of me was a little too much on his phone the whole time. But I was like, when you're to the far right, and also just the thing they do that drives me nuts is that during the trailers, they leave all the lights on at full blast, but they're aimed at the screen. So like half the screen is like washed out. So when I want to get really pumped for the ambulance trailer, and it's like mostly being washed out by light, I kind of want some of my A-list money back. But movies that shoot like IMAX, it's like some of them have been like really great. Like Tron Legacy, I loved how it used the expanded frame. I thought the way they did Ghost Protocol is incredible. But a lot of them, like Dune was great, but the way it would change multiple times in one sequence, for me, like is just kind of odd, where you'll be watching a sequence and you'll cut to one shot that's full frame, back to 2401, back to full frame, back to that. Like Dark Knight, the opening of that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a theater in my life, as is the chase scene that's in the middle. But then there's other things I've seen, like for me, like Spider-Man No Way Home, it was really felt like they hadn't composed for that frame. Like it felt like they were mainly just composing for the anamorphic frame. So like when I'm watching the movie, it sort of feels like the stuff that's in the rest of it is not part of the visual storytelling of the moment. I'm probably the only human alive who kind of gets a little caught up on that, but it sort of feels like if your shot could work in both formats, they can't be equally good. That's actually kind of sort of scientifically impossible,
Right.
I think. And like, but the thing about that, when you're doing like Ghost Protocol, the depth is just you're seeing more of the thing that's like thrilling you, and also just like the way that I think Nolan used the frame better than anybody. Like he would use the full IMAX frame almost like a classical Hollywood movie, when they would have like kind of that boxy approach, and those sequences I thought were incredible. Like one of the best things I've ever seen in my life is that shot behind Heath Ledger when he's holding the mask on the side of the road, like his introductory shot in IMAX, using that full frame. It's just like, it was really good. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I mean, the way that movie went into IMAX sequences was great. I thought that when he did Dark Knight Rises, that one I thought had the issue that you were talking about before, which is it cut back and forth within scenes a bunch of times between IMAX and 240, and it was like distractingly switching within moments that felt distracting to me in Dark Knight Rises. But that's a whole different movie.
Yeah, I think that's the third one.
Correct.
I think that'd be really great if your shtick was just like, you don't know anything about any other franchises. Like someone would be just coming here, they're like, what do you think about James Bond? You're like, who is that? Is an actor or a character? Like it's all you watch. You're like, sorry guys, I watched that new movie, but I'm watching the second half of MI3 again.
That's pretty much where we are at this point.
Yeah.
Well, but I think you might have seen the John Wick movies. You felt like you might know what was going on there.
Yes. We had fun with those. I hope that wasn't too much of a left turn from our normal everyday programming.
No, that's actually how I found out your podcast existed.
Really? Wow.
Someone had sent me a link to the John Wick one. And I was like really confused at first because people are like, hey, sorry, this is a Mission Impossible podcast, but it's now a John Wick podcast. I'm like, it's a what? What am I listening to? And then I went and looked up the other ones, and I was just like, oh my God. And then I've been listening to it since then.
Wow.
And I know everyone who's been listening has just been demanding, when are you going to get the guy who ran that famous Mission Impossible 2 website? And I was like Carnahan. I was like dodging you guys for a long time. And people just kept sending me DMs like, hey, you got to be on that show. And finally, I decided, look, there's no entertainment value to have me here, and there's no reason for me to actually be here, but let's just get it over with because the people have been demanding it.
Well, the tattoo is reason enough.
Yeah.
But then also I got to ask you, because I always make it about Jackie Chan. You are credited as a writer on Skiptrace, the Jackie Chan movie directed by Rennie Harlin. What can you tell me? Did you have any interactions with Jackie, or was it all just for Rennie Harlin, or what was the situation there?
So I was meeting to direct that movie. I had this short that got me a bunch of meetings and then no jobs. I made this short called like Cost of Living in like 2010 or 2011, and I'd met on a bunch of things, and I was pitching on that movie inexplicably to direct, and then I lost the job to somebody. And you know, when you don't get a job, you're usually like, fuck that guy, like I deserved it. And I was like, so who got the job? And they're like, Rennie Harlin. I was like, why was I even pitching? I've never made a movie. And like Rennie Harlin's like, I want to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I want to shoot your fucking 9-month shoot in China when I've never made a movie before. Let's go. But Rennie Harlin wants it. Just tell me Rennie Harlin's in the mix, man. So they're like, well, we want to kind of start over with the script. Not start over per se. There's just been like 8 drafts before that, or 18, I don't know. They're like, but if you're interested in maybe doing a rewrite, we'll have you meet Rennie. So I met with Rennie, and like I was meeting in the lobby of this hotel in Malibu, and I came in and sat down, and someone else was pitching, and what I realized is they just like stacked it all day. So like I'm sitting there hearing the previous pitch, and I'm like, what?
Whoa.
And then like when I was finishing my pitch, there was like someone waiting for me. So I like sat down, and before we started like talking or whatever, I was just like, hey man, I got to talk about the Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Yes.
And then we talked about the Adventures of Ford Fairlane for like 45 minutes or something. Yes. I don't think I pitched anything. And then I got the job, and I'm pretty sure we just talked about the Adventures of Ford Fairlane. So Rennie, if you're hearing this, I hope you didn't, but if you're a writer hearing this and you're going to meet with Rennie, All I hope is that you are as genuinely gigantic fan of the Adventures of Ford Fairlane as I am, because you can't fake it. Like the real Fairlane heads, like they know.
Yeah.
Like if I walked in, I was like, "Hey man, you know that movie you made with the Dice Man? I watched it too." Like he would have seen right through that.
No,
But
yeah. You got to have the genuine passion.
you know, I just want to talk about weird Daniel Waters scripts all day, man. So
yeah,
anyway, so I worked on that for a month, and I wrote like all the action. Like I wrote a script, and then they went to go shoot, and then every word of dialogue I had was rewritten, but they kept all my action scenes. So I ended up getting credit still because like all my jokes were gone. But any line where someone's like, "Hey, you," is there, or like, "Grab it," like anything that's like not has no personality, it's just like that. Those lines are all there. But yeah, so like I was really excited because I was supposed to go to China, and then no one invited me. And then I was like supposed to meet Jackie, and then I didn't meet Jackie. So when I was like in high school, I had the I Am Jackie Chan book like on my nightstand.
Me too.
But so fast forward a couple years later, Beyond Fest has this Jackie thing, and they're going to do a big Q&A with him.
Yeah, I went to that.
Oh, well, I was there too.
Amazing.
And the people who run Beyond Fest are some of my favorite people in the world. And one of them was like, "Hey, do you want to meet Jackie?" And I was like, "What the fuck?" So someone like brought me backstage, like, "Hey, Jackie, this is one of the writers in Skiptrace." And I was like, "Hey, man." He's like, "Hey, so good to meet you." Like, we talked a little bit. And I was like, "All right, bye." And then he like went on stage. So I have met Jackie Chan.
Wow.
And we basically just said hi to each other. But it was a pretty great experience, man, because he's Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
And Police Story and Super Cop are two of my top 5 action movies of all time.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
So Charles, you're the only one that hasn't met Jackie Chan on this call. How do you feel?
Wow, jeez, that's terrible. Don't tell me that.
My favorite. I won't say the movie, but I meant to write a sequel to a different Jackie Chan movie in a different time period, so it'll be really vague, and it hadn't come out yet. And like they call me and they're like, "This is gonna be like the biggest hit ever," and so we need to start writing a sequel now. So like come up with the take. So like they gave me like the script, and I spent like a bunch of time coming up with the take, and I went and pitched it, and I was like, "Oh, we love it." And I was like, "This is really exciting." And then the movie came out. It was like a gigantic bomb, and no one called me back. And I was just like, So I blame America for not seeing the movie that I'm talking
Tuxedo
about.
2, what could have been.
It's so crazy. I was going to call it Tuxedos, but then I was going to draw 2 lines through the S. Like,
So when you were writing Skiptrace, did you know it was for Jackie Chan and Johnny Knoxville?
it was Jackie Chan and Sean William Scott. And then I turned in my draft. I've been a working writer since 2005. And, you know, I've had like more than a dozen things that I spent so long on that never got made. And I spent a month on that movie. And then it was my first credit where I was just like writing like 20 pages a day. Like someone would call me from China and say, "Hey, we should open it with like some guys on a boat and his house is on stilts. Go figure it out." And I'd be like, "Oh, fuck." And then I would write like a 20-page action scene in an hour and send it back and then get feedback. And a lot of it was like that. Someone would like send me a photo and they're like, "Look at this river. Can you do something with this?" I was like, "Yeah." And then I would write like a whole action scene in one day and send it back. And that was like the whole process. And then I turned it in, and then I saw a trade break that was like Johnny Knoxville, and I called everybody and they're like, "Oh yeah, it just changed." I was like, "All right." So then Johnny and then went there.
I heard your original script had some big Stifler energy. That was probably, they had to adjust for Mr. Knoxville.
I had this weird thing where I'm just like, every scene Jackie has to go, "Okay, so what's a MILF?" And he's like, "I'll tell you later." And no one agreed with me that that'd be a really good running gag. But that was like, it's like a different thing. It's like, I think the Jackass movies are masterpieces. I love Johnny Knoxville. The thing about that was exciting for me at the time was I'm a huge fan of The Rundown.
Yeah, that movie's great.
And I thought he was so great in that. So I was thinking like, oh, we can get a little bit more of those Rundown vibes. But I don't know what happened there. But I had a great time writing it. So then it premieres at Fantasia, and I fly up there for the North American premiere. And it plays in like a 900-seat theater. And when it ends, they're like, "Everyone stay in your seats. The writer's going to do a Q&A. I walk down, they turn on the lights, and there's 8 people left.
Oh.
So I'm standing at a microphone to 8 people, and they're like, "Does anyone have any questions?" And this guy's like, "What was Jackie Chan like?" I'm like, I didn't meet him." Like, what was it? They're like, what was it like to go to China? I was like, I've never been to China. somehow people ask questions that literally didn't have answers. So then I proceeded to spend 20 minutes just goofing, talking about what I thought the sequels should be, and like that I thought Nick Cage should be the bad guy in the sequel, and he was like Johnny Knoxville's dad, and I was just making up entire movies for a while. And I walked out front, and I was like a little despondent, and a guy walked up to me with a French accent, and I'm not going to do a French accent because I can't do it. And he's like, I just want to let you know, like, I teach a class on screenwriting, and I thought you did a good job. And my response was, I'm like, are you fucking with me? He's like, I'm not fucking with you. I was like, okay, thanks, man. So I was like, well, at least that guy who teaches screenwriting said I didn't do a really bad job. So I have a complex about this for years, about the fact the whole fucking theater left, even though my script was rewritten. I still want him to like it because my name's on it. And I'm like bummed out. And then someone tells me, he's like, oh no, like it went over and everyone else's movie was like starting. So everyone had to like run across town or go to another screening. And I spent years being like, you know, to myself, like, hey, remember that time when everyone left when you're doing a Q&A? And then I brought it up to someone like as a woe is me thing later. He's like, no, I was in that crowd. He's like, we all were like running to another movie. I was like, oh, someone should tell me that. Like, so from now on, if anyone's listening to this and you're like doing a Q&A thing with me or like with anyone else, like if everyone leaves, tell the person that it's not their fault. It's a really good festival. It's not. The problem was the guy might have said it to me in French and I just didn't know what he said. This is not an anti-France podcast by any means. I'm just saying.
Well, I think we've come to the big questions, and if you've listened to the show, you know what's coming.
I'm so amped. You're going to ask me which score is my favorite and which performance of Ving Rhames. That's what you ask everybody, right? Which Ving Rhames is the best?
Rank the Ving Rhames performances.
Well, should we start with the hair rankings? Where do you fall on that sort of continuum?
So the interesting thing about it is like they're so era specific that like when you're looking back at them, you're looking back at it about like the time it was both as people in an existential sense and also who Tom Cruise was in that point of his career. And they all kind of represent different stages of where he was as an adult, as a leading man. And the first one is like very representative of this guy where he's sort of just like a missile that's like can't be stopped, you know? And then two, they basically wanted to make it feel a little bit more melodramatic, a little bit more romantic, a little more kind of like sweeping. And so they give him like this long hair, which is really great, I think.
Yeah.
And then you go into like 3, which is a little bit more back in the world of the first one. But then 4 is like sort of almost committing to the 2 long hair, but then almost
it's
not.
a little bit more shaped, yeah.
But it has like a plot thing because he's like been in prison, right? Am I forgetting one of those classic montages of guys' hair being cut? Yeah, so like it has like a real functional element to it. And then it's like I have nothing bad to say about his looks in Rogue Nation and Fallout. To me, they feel just very organic, whereas 1 and 2 to me feel almost more like bold choices.
Well, 1 we have sort of justified as him. He was so young that maybe he was just coming out of like the Marines or something. Like, and he sort of maintained his short sort of buzz cut. You're not buying it, I can tell.
No, I think that there's really, if you think about that and you think about his photographic memory, what it makes me think is, I don't know. I mean, like, we know he doesn't know how to use the internet, so maybe he couldn't find a barber, so he's just cutting his hair himself.
That's
so
true.
You think Ethan still doesn't know how to use the internet from the first movie until now? He just never learned how to use the internet.
I gotta tell you, like, the reason why they don't let me make these movies is because in each of them I'd have a scene where like Ethan is like trying to Google something, but he's doing it the same way. Everyone's like, just let him do it. It's okay. It's okay. Like, he doesn't know how to use the internet. Because like I think that 1 is like a perfect movie, and 1 is my favorite, but that internet scene, not accurate.
I love how exhausted he is by the process too of just sending emails. He's like, oh.
And I just love at the end he's just like, hack the planet. And then, but so I have to say, like, I think 2 is probably a favorite purely because it is such like an incredible departure from the first movie and like the balls it takes to be like, we're going to change up the whole aesthetic of this guy, like, and I think it works because every time he's doing one of those like flip kicks, like the hair like flows in like the John Woo slow motion. And if his hair was short, what is it going to do?
Right. Yeah, it adds a lot of dynamic kind of texture to scenes. Same with 4, seeing his hair blow in the wind on the side of the building and everything is pretty cool.
Which was artificial, we found out. There was no actual wind up there. Remember, they had to bring fans in and make it look like there's wind.
No, I don't remember.
We've forgotten so much about these movies.
What made me laugh so hard was when Elswit's like, Elswit does that thing where he's like, there's no digital Tom. That was like so good. He's talking about Bird pitching him the sequence and be like, and that one's digital Tom, but then this is the real one. And then his version of the stories at the end, Tom Cruise is like, but there's no digital Tom. And I was like, that's fucking, I hope that's true because it's so great.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would say if someone's like trying to take my stunts away from me. Like, there's no digital. I tell people there's no digital BenDavid all the time, and they don't understand the reference. So I just seem really weird.
Well, you just gave it away a little bit, but please give us your definitive rankings. I don't think you've done this on Twitter yet, so I think this is a Light the Fuse exclusive. So please.
All right, well, let me tell all you John Wick fans out there, this is my ranking. So the first John Wick is the best because you have the emotional connection, because the dog being killed ties everything together.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the sequels, you don't have that. And I think 3 is the best as an action movie. And then 2 is probably my second favorite as an action movie. But John Wick 1 is by far the best one.
It's still the best
you're
movie,
just
right?
so upset about the fucking dog.
Yeah, exactly. It has the best motivating factor. I mean, you want to see him. Your blood's boiling. You want to see him kill every dog. You summarized my feelings exactly on the franchise. Perfect.
Yeah, it's like Maximus. Like, they killed your wife and daughter, but did they kill your dog? Like, like when you're watching like Gladiator, you're really there. But it's like, if Gladiator was about like just a gladiator who Joaquin Phoenix killed his dog, I'd be like, let's go. It's just like, this is it. So anyway, guys, thanks for your time. That's my official ranking of the
Wait a minute.
Okay, so the first one is the best one because it has the best filmmaking of the movies to me. It's the only one that has like split diopters. It's the only one that has zooms. It has just
I miss zooms
so much crap.
Don't you miss zooms in movies? People need to zoom more.
Zooms fucking rule. I mean, I only made Happily so I could zoom. So like the movie's just like all zooms. But like the first one has all of my favorite sort of filmmaking tools used so well, and that still to me has all that has more personality than the rest of the movies. But I love them all. But I would go number 1. The first one, then I go Rogue Nation, because Rogue Nation to me is the second best in terms of action, but it's an action movie that has the exact vibe that I want of these, which is like a playful heist kind of movie. Like, it's very light on its feet. And then I would go Fallout. And Fallout, for the bullseye it's trying to hit, I think is absolutely perfect. I think it's incredible beginning to end. It does have one thing to me that my brain can't forgive, and this has happened with a lot of recent movies, which is that
Not enough Imagine Dragons.
Yes, actually, that's it. So I'm sorry. How about you just finish my sentences? No, after I've been cutting you off the whole time, I respect someone finally did it to me.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's the sky, the parachuting thing. That sequence is like so great, but every time I watch it, it feels fake because of the sky replacement. And it's one of the most interesting things to me is there's so many movies I've loved in the last 10 years where I know the stunt is real. And I've seen footage of someone where all they did is like wire removal or whatever. But when there's sky replacement or digital clouds added or any of that stuff, my brain thinks the whole thing is fake. And that's like, if I say anything about that, and that's not the movie, because no one else has this problem. But for me, there's something about like what I'm seeing with the stunt. Like, there's something about it that feels green screen to me, even though it's one of maybe the coolest stunts ever shot.
Right.
Where, like, just shooting it is cooler than any stunt in any movie ever. Like, I fucking love that. And I love Henry Cavill in it because, we have to pour out a cold one for The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is one of the only movies ever that needed to be a franchise and wasn't. I'm still upset about it. But I think Cavill's, like, really charming in these type of movies. So basically, I go 1, Rogue Nation, Fallout. And then Ghost Protocol. Ghost Protocol I fucking love so much, but I'm not I'm not like a gigantic fan of like the last half hour of it. Although like the last half hour is better than the last half hour of most movies and other franchises, so we're just being picky here. Then I go 2 because I like 2 a lot, even though it's got a lot of problems, and then 3. So I go 1, 5, 6, 4, 2, 3.
Okay.
Wow.
And that's the common one, I know. That's like what everybody does. It's actually so weird. It's like a lot of franchises, there's like sort of the mainstay. Like most of the fast rankings are correct. Like most people are sort of on the same page of what the best movies are and stuff. But with this one, no one's ever on the same page. The only thing you can definitely know is that a lot of department heads will just say, "Oh, and 2 sucked." And some people just be like, "Yeah, I didn't even watch it. I heard it was so bad." I'm like, "Come on, guys! Like, can I want like an edited version of these podcasts where I never have to hear anyone talk shit about 2."
Yeah, we need to get more people on too, so that people can appreciate the craft and all of that.
Yeah, but then I don't want to hear like someone come on and like they're like, "Oh yeah, it sucked," but someone who worked on the movie, I'm like, that would be even worse. It's just like you get John Woo on here, he's like, "It's a piece of shit."
Oh, we gotta get John Woo. We're gonna do it someday.
He's a god. Whenever he gets his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Oscars, that's when you got to get it. I think personally. I mean, I even like Paycheck now. I didn't like it in theaters, but I watched Paycheck recently. It was a pretty fucking good time.
Yeah, it's fun.
I haven't seen it since theaters, but I remember loving the couple of motorcycle sequences in it.
It's like, it was just, I felt like I snorted a bunch of pixie sticks. It's just like a goofball kind of thing. It's just like a really fun movie.
Well, do you have anything that we need to plug? Where is the Scott Pilgrim anime show? Can we talk about that?
I read in some articles that apparently I'm doing a Scott Pilgrim show. It sounds interesting. I'm a really, really big fan of the comic and movie and video game, and Brian's Liam O'Malley's a really good friend of mine. If I was doing that, that would be cool. But I just I don't know. I read stuff about it.
Wow. Well, what can you talk about? Anything?
Where can we see your work? Yeah.
So you can see my work on iTunes under podcast, Light the Fuse. It's here. My entire career has
I'm gonna look up where Happily is streaming.
We'll put Happily in the show notes for everybody.
Happily is available for rent on all digital platforms, and there's a Blu-ray and DVD disc, and the Blu-ray and DVD and iTunes version, if you buy them, has a commentary. So the way to avoid having to hear my voice anymore.
Who's your distributor?
I didn't think I was going to get one. So Saban, but Paramount did the home video.
Wow,
but
that's awesome.
But I go back and forth between like maybe trading to have some 4K version existence. Like I really wish there was like a way to stream it or rent it in 4K. Right now it's exclusively on Roku for a streamer for like another like while, but it has commercials. So I'm sorry to say this, Roku, if you can hear it. I think you guys should rent it or buy it. But if you want to watch it with commercials, you can stream it on a Roku device. We haven't talked about it yet, but there's this movie Skiptrace that I wrote some of that there's ways to watch that. And then I'm working on a bunch of things that I'm not allowed to talk about because they all probably will get canceled, and I'll be miserable because of it.
I know the feeling.
Wow, this has been a really enlightening look into the dark side.
I'm going to tell you a little something about me. 1, I'm a bad podcast guest. 2, I can't tell you anything I'm working on. 3, it'll all probably get canceled. 4, Roku's going to hate me now.
Well, guess what? Guess what else is on Roku with ads? Skiptrace.
Oh, hey, there you go. And you know, there's a show I directed a bunch of episodes for that's on Roku channel as well, play-by-play. So hey, this is like an ad for Roku channel.
I'm sorry I haven't seen it, but I have seen Night Owls.
I just saw your Letterboxd review.
Oh, that was no one's business. I wrote a really long, nuanced review of, you guys, if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, you can see exactly what I said about Night Owls, and I will spoil it. It's 2 words long. But there's an exclamation point, I think.
Well, you look like you're about to like host a YouTube show with all of these Blu-rays next to you.
Yeah, they're framed there terribly. Basically, what happens if you go either to left or right of my office, it looks like a hurricane hit it, like the movie Twister, which was also out the summer of Mission Impossible. So
Paul Hirsch blames Twister on why no one understood Mission Impossible.
it's funny that he would say that because I don't get that, but he's a god and his book is so good. Dude,
Yeah.
the chapter in his book when he explains how they recut the ending of Planes, Trains blew my fucking mind because I've seen that movie 1,000 times. Anyway, guys, you can find all my work in Paul Hirsch's book on editing. I ghost wrote it because he just was like, "You remember what I did," and we had never met, which was weird that he would say that. But I wrote the book.
Wow. Learning a lot here. Well, thank you so much for accepting this mission. I hope you come back. Maybe after 7 comes out, we can talk more about it.
Look, when they make a huge mistake and hire me to direct 9, I'm going to dodge you guys.
Damn it!
Yeah, there's like, unless you do a series about Happily and then trick me into talking about it. It's like, they're like, we got everyone who worked on Happily. Like, what does this have to do with the show? Like, shut up. Our fans are demanding it. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. It was great to actually talk to you in person instead of just on Twitter. So, I mean, that alone is a big thrill. But yeah, I hope everybody goes and checks out your movies and follows you on Twitter because you are a great Twitter follow. A lot of opinions, a lot of fun stuff. And I'm assuming when you are able to talk about any of these projects, that'll be where you do it.
Yeah, I wish I was on some projects. That Scott Pilgrim thing sounds really cool. I mean, if I would love to see an animated series of Scott Pilgrim from Science Saru. That'd be great. I hope someone does that.
Thank you so much. We're back. Sad to see him go.
Yes.
But something tells me our paths will cross once more.
Yes. And he may or may not have worked on a Scott Pilgrim animated show that is coming. Either way, a Scott Pilgrim animated show sounds like it would be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is working on it or if anyone is or what. It's hard. I'm so gullible. I believe anything. So it's like he would trick me with that, whatever he say. I have no idea what's real and what's not. So hopefully he worked on a Scott Pilgrim animated show.
Yeah. And I'm sure you two will cross paths at the monthly indie filmmaker mixer in Los Angeles. Talk about Sundance opportunities. Talk about what's coming up on the schedule.
There's also, did you know, there's a whole organization called Nebraska Coast Connection. That's all about it's people in the movie business and who are from Nebraska.
Does Alexander Payne run this connection?
No, but he's been a few times over the years. I went when I was in college. They actually asked me back a few years ago to come back and talk about night owls, and I think something else I can't remember what I was working on at the time, but yeah, they it's a cool organization. It's really really great. It's just like people who network, who are from Nebraska and just trying to make it in this crazy business. So I don't know if BenDavid's ever done it or if he even knows about it or what. But yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's great. Well, you have some shout outs to give, I think, don't you?
I do, actually, yes. Thank you for reminding me. I want to give a very special thank you to Jacob from Holland. And I also want to say that this episode was mixed and edited by Luke Burson, and the music is by Kevin Blumenfeld. And I also want to tell people that they should sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/LightTheFuse. We've got bonus content every week. We just did a big breakdown of the Top Gun Maverick trailer. We did a whole tribute to Jerry Goldsmith, the great composer who we love so much. We do bonus episodes every week, so you should check it out. Sign up, support the show. Another way you can support the show is by going to our TeePublic page, which has shirts and masks and other kinds of items you can buy to support the show. You can find a direct link to that from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com, under the merch tab. And while you're on the website, go to the episode guide and check out all our show notes for every episode, because we've got a lot of fun stuff in there. I think as long as BenDavid allows it, we will put a picture of his IMF tattoo in the show notes, and we'll put links to his work in there as well. And what else, Drew?
They can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod. And, that's a great place to keep up with the breaking news of these franchises. as well as if you guys could like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. It would be a huge help. And that's it. We'll be back next week with someone. Who is next week, Charles?
Next week is something in the works. It might be a surprise. We'll see. So,
Okay.
Let's hope it all works out, and that's what will happen, but we're not going to announce that yet, so we'll see.
Okay. We'll be back then.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.